You know, football has a lot of stories. Some are sad, some are weird, and some are uplifting. And some stories you simply can't even make up, and this may well be one of them. The story of Parma has been one of so many ups and downs. Success on the field, along with financial troubles behind the scenes. This is a team that had legends like Cannavaro, Buffon, Lilian Thuram, Hernan Crespo. The list really goes on. But above all these legends, there's a much lesser known player at the forefront of the club's wall of honor, and rightly so. Ahead of all these international stars, there's the name of a player who refused to watch his club die. This is a story of loyalty, but it also goes beyond that. It's a story of resilience and inspiration of a captain who went down with a ship to the 4th division and helped Parma get back to Serie A after bankruptcy. But the question is, what makes the story of Alessandro Lucarelli so special to us? Well, stick around to find out. Right, so let's go all the way back to the late 90s. Parma were the darlings of the Italian football. Within a decade, they won 2 UEFA Cups, a European Cup Winners' Cup, a European Super Cup, and 3 Coppa Italias. But due to financial scandals, the club had to change hands a bunch of times, which severely set the club back to mediocrity for the next several years. And this is when our story takes place. At the end of the 2013-14 season, Parma finished 6th in the league. It seemed like the good times were about to return. But behind the scenes, financial mismanagements were already setting up problems that would eventually bankrupt the club. Red flags were raised when the club couldn't even pay a small tax fee on player salaries, from which they were banned by UEFA to participate in the Europa League. But the worst was still to come. After a 7-point deduction due to unpaid salaries, their financial situation couldn't stay hidden anymore. As Parma changed ownership multiple times, the situation just kept getting worse and worse. At one point, Parma had to postpone a match because they couldn't even pay for the steward required for the game. The situation was so terrible that even the club benches had to be auctioned to pay for the debt. But within all this, a certain man was buying medical supplies, bottles of water, and making sure laundry bills were paid on time at Parma. But he wasn't the kit man, the club doctor, or a passionate volunteer. He was the club captain. Today's man of the hour is Alessandro Lucarelli, who chose to stay with the club even when they had to restart from the 4th division again. As well as keeping the club operational and looking after the office staff, Lucarelli also had to keep his players motivated. But eventually, the inevitable happened, and Parma went bankrupt. As a result, they had to start again from the 4th division with a new name and identity. For a club that won the UEFA Cup less than a couple of decades ago, this was a tragic event. Due to bankruptcy, all their players were free to join other clubs, and they all left as no one wanted to play in the 4th division, and understandably so. Except one man. Alessandro Lucarelli chose to stay with his beloved Parma even in the 4th division. From one season where he played against elite clubs like Juventus, Milan and Inter, to playing against, well, part-time footballers who were teachers, accountants or carpenters. The pitches at the training ground were dry and bare because, well, there wasn't any maintenance. The phone lines were cut out because of unpaid bills and there was hardly any furniture left. But before we talk about how Lucarelli got Parma back to Serie A, a lot of time goes into making these videos. So your like and comments really mean a lot to me, and it really helps out the YouTube algorithm as well, as this is a young channel. So, under a new name and ownership, the new Parma started their journey back to Serie A from the 4th division. In the club's only season in Serie D, the new Parma sold more than 9,000 season tickets, more than doubling the previous league record. With Lucarelli at the heart of the Parma defense, an undefeated Parma was promoted to the 3rd division with 94 points. That's a lot of points. Remember, the club literally had to start from scratch. That being said, life didn't start easy in the 3rd division. After a tricky start, Parma finished their season in 2nd place, enough to qualify for the playoff. In the final of the playoff, they were facing the all-important match. It was a make or break moment for Parma. The winner would be rewarded with a place in Serie B, whereas for the loser, well, they had to spend another season in the 3rd division. Parma really couldn't afford to miss out, and at least one player wasn't prepared to consider that. There's a footage of Captain Lucarelli motivating his teammates in an inspiring speech that would leave anyone with a goosebump. It was an emotional piece of oratory that you can still watch on the internet. He concludes the speech by saying, "There's one more thing. I don't know if I'll have the opportunity to try again. So you need to do me a favor. Today, you need to take me into Serie B. One for all for one." Yeah, I know it was a terrible attempt to replicate the speech, but you gotta look up the original one. It was enough to carry his team over the line, and promotion to the second division was the reward. Lucarelli was now 40 years old at this point, and thinking about whether he could go on for another season or not. But with just one more step left to get back to Serie A, he agreed to play for one more season. For the unaware, Serie B is one of the most competitive leagues in Europe, quite similar to the Championship division in England. So you can say that promotion was a big ask for a reborn Parma that was led by a 40-year-old captain. As expected, Serie B was, let's just say, quite tricky for Parma. They were dealing with teams that were far better equipped for promotion, and Parma really had to dig deep just to stay mid-table. That being said, a turn of fortune meant that Parma were able to get higher in the table. A run of form that also included 6 goals in 6 games for Lucarelli himself as a defender. It all boiled down to the final day of the season, when Parma finally earned the promotion back to Serie A with goal difference. Alessandro Lucarelli delivered on his promise, and Parma became the first team in Italian football history to have 3 promotions in a row. And they have done that with their remarkable captain leading the way. They just sealed the promotion back to Serie A. But on top of that, there was more news to come. It was time to acknowledge the end of a journey. Later that night, it was announced that Alessandro Lucarelli kicked his last ball, headed his last clearance, and tackled for the last time for Parma. At the age of 41, he announced his retirement from football after delivering his promise. In the long history of Parma, with all the legends that wore the Parma shirt, only one shirt has been retired. There's only one man whose number 6 shirt will never be given to any other player in his honor. The man, the player, and the captain is Parma's own adopted son, Alessandro Lucarelli. So, what do you think about the story of Alessandro Lucarelli? You know, it's quite refreshing to see that with all the money and finances involved in football, you can still find true passion, even within the elite level. And the story of Alessandro Lucarelli is a testament to that. There's a whole world of stories behind this beautiful game. Some amazing ones, some weird ones, and sadly, some tragic ones as well. Which is why I started this channel to tell stories like this in the way that I do. Is there a football story that you'd like me to cover in a video? Let me know in the comment section below, but be nice to each other. I'm Football Drawn, and I like to tell football stories with comic and drawings. If you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of the channel as well.